They all burst into laughter as he broke down. My father chuckled dismissively. "He's just a kid. He'll move on." And my mother, God bless her soul, tapped her wine glass and quipped, "Guess drama runs in the family." My 10-year-old son sat frozen, eyes shimmering with tears he tried desperately to hold back, fists clenched tightly beneath the tablecloth. Not a single person reached for him, not his grandparents, not his uncles, not even my picture-perfect sister, the one who triggered it all with a cheap jab at his stutter. I watched him, trying to absorb his pain as if I could take it from him and bury it within myself like a dam holding back floodwaters. But he got up before I could do anything. His voice trembled, but the words sliced through the room like a blade. "I'll remember this forever." He looked around at every stunned face. "Quiet. My name is Jordan Pierce. And if you're watching this later, don't go anywhere, because sometimes the quietest voice starts the loudest collapse." Have you ever watched your own child be humiliated while your entire family laughed like it was part of some dark comedy sketch? Because I did, just last night, and I said nothing. Not then. We were gathered at the long oak table at my parents' estate, a grand celebration in honor of so-called family success. My father had just secured a major business deal. My sister Eleanor was basking in the glow of a new promotion. And my son Eli, he got publicly ridiculed for mispronouncing the word congratulations. The laughter echoed like sirens. They held. My brother-in-law even recorded it on his phone, leaning in to whisper, "This is comedy gold." Eli turned to me with eyes that had only ever seen love from me. Eyes that silently asked, "Why aren't you stopping them, Dad?" But I didn't move. I didn't speak. Because true revenge, the kind they'll never forget, demands more than outrage. It demands strategy. It demands stillness before the thunder. Later that night, after the forced laughter and clinking glasses faded, I tucked Eli into bed in our guest room. He whispered into the dark, "I don't want to come to these family things anymore." "I know, buddy," I murmured, kissing his forehead. "You won't have to." I walked down the long hallway I'd known all my life. I was raised in a home where silence was strength, where politeness masked pain, and shame was swallowed with expensive wine and fake smiles. But not anymore. What my family didn't realize was that for over a year, I had been quietly constructing something. And last night, they gave me the last piece I needed to set it in motion. By the time the morning sun hit the windows, the empire they thought was untouchable would begin to rot from its core, like fruit that looks flawless until your hand sinks into the softness beneath the skin. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window in Eli's room, moonlight gently illuminating his peaceful face. He'd finally drifted off, holding tight to the stuffed lion my late wife gave him, the only thing of hers that still carried her scent. He'd be free soon, free from these people who wore cruelty like designer perfume. At 5 a.m., I entered my father's office. Same heavy mahogany desk since the 90s. Same locked drawer, I knew the code. It had always been my mother's birthday. Inside, bank records, power of attorney forms, an updated will, one I was supposed to co-sign months ago to give my parents access to Eli's trust fund under the guise of family investments. I never signed it. Instead, I made copies, every document. Then I unlocked the app they had forgotten I'd built myself, PureSecure. They still used it to store sensitive files, tax returns, family contracts, legal documents. I still had admin privileges. And now, I had everything I needed. Because when they laughed at my child, they didn't just cross a line. They detonated a charge I'd been quietly setting for a year. At 7 a.m., I made one call. "Jessica," I said, "initiate the audit, send the trustee files to the firm, and attach the video." She paused. "The one with your nephew mocking Eli?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Distribute it to every partner. And copy the board. You sure you want to drop the bomb, Jordan?" I looked out the window. My father was sipping his morning coffee by the pool, dressed in his robe, humming Sinatra like nothing in the world could touch him. "They buried me for years," I said softly. "Let's give them a taste of the soil." By 9 a.m., the fuse hit the powder. My father's phone buzzed first. Then my sister's. Then the house landline lit up like a fire alarm. What they never saw coming was that while they mocked my son, they had already lost control of the inheritance they schemed over for years. The trust fund, left by my late wife, had long since been restructured into an irrevocable trust in Eli's name. And as soon as they first tried to manipulate it, I added a clause. Any attempt to control it would void their access permanently. Then the audit hit like a tidal wave. Shady transactions surfaced. My father's company's shares were frozen. His offshore accounts flagged. My sister's promotion bonus, gone. Turns out, when a law firm receives footage of you bullying a child with a speech disorder, clients start disappearing. Fast. I stood calmly in the kitchen as my mother stormed in, barefoot, face flushed with rage. "What have you done?" she snapped. I took a sip of coffee and smiled, just showing Eli what it looks like to stand up for yourself. Her voice cracked. "You destroy your own family?" I stepped closer. "You did that long ago." Then I left the room and walked outside, back to Eli, back to a future that no longer belonged to them. And in that moment, the mansion I once called home finally felt small, shrunken beneath the man I'd become. The phones kept ringing. The shrill tones echoed through the marble halls like a panicked heartbeat. I cooked breakfast as if the world wasn't crumbling around them. Eli liked his eggs soft, toast crisp, strawberries halved. He ate silently, still wrapped in the oversized hoodie he'd worn to sleep. But his eyes were clear. But behind their laughter, I could almost see it. The wall he was starting to build inside himself, brick by silent brick. The same kind I began at his age. I wasn't going to let him finish it. "You doing all right, buddy?" I asked. He gave a small nod, still chewing his breakfast. "You didn't say anything to them," he said softly. "I didn't have to," I replied. "Sometimes, saying nothing is louder than any shout." He tilted his head, slightly puzzled. "Are they in trouble?" I offered a faint smile. "They're beginning to learn what happens when you push the quiet ones too far." When we stepped outside, the house behind us felt like a fractured empire, its walls still standing, but its foundation cracking. My father was locked in his office, barking at lawyers over the phone, trying desperately to stay ahead of the chaos already swallowing him. My mother sobbed alone in the sunroom, wine in hand, blaming the backlash on internet gossip. Eleanor curled up in a lounge chair outside, furiously scrolling, deleting, and scrubbing her online presence. But it was too late. The video had spread far and fast. That's the thing about cruelty. It echoes louder, longer, and deeper than kindness, especially when there's proof in pixels. At noon, I took Eli for a drive. Not just to get away, but to take a first step. In the heart of the city, tucked between gleaming skyscrapers and graffiti-stained alleyways, stood the nonprofit I'd quietly built after my wife passed. The Starlight Center for Children with Communication Challenges. I'd never told my family about it. It wasn't built for their approval. It was built for Eli, and now it belonged to him. I unlocked the front door, flipped on the lights, and turned to him with a key in my palm. "This is yours now," I said gently. "Your mom and I created this place for kids who feel like you did last night." He stared down at the key. "But I'm just a kid." I knelt beside him. "Exactly. And one day, another kid will walk through these doors feeling scared, unsure and alone, and your name will be the one they see on the building that welcomes them." He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just gave a small, solemn nod, like something inside him recognized the weight of it all. When we returned to the estate later, the air had changed. It was quieter, but not peaceful. No phones ringing. No frantic yelling. Just 3 broken people sitting in a mansion filled with consequences they'd never imagined would catch up to them. My father didn't glance up. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. Eleanor opened her mouth, then closed it again. The voice that once cut like glass now trembled like paper in the rain. I didn't speak. I simply placed an envelope on the table. Inside was my official statement, a complete withdrawal from the family trust, renunciation of any claim to their estate, a severing of all financial and legal ties. Attached to it was a photo, me, Eli, and his mother, smiling in a moment before everything turned. Beneath it, written in ink, "He won't forget, and neither will I." I turned and walked away, because sometimes vengeance isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's simply choosing to leave people to rot in the ruins they created, windows shut, doors sealed. I didn't expect anyone to come after me, but guilt is rarely quiet. It screams, claws, and begs for forgiveness from the very people it's harmed. 3 hours later, my father showed up outside my apartment. No driver, no tailored suit, Just him, drenched in sweat, wearing a wrinkled golf shirt. He rang the buzzer 3 times. I didn't answer. He waited, sitting on the steps like a man who no longer belonged to the world he helped build. I watched from the window. Eli was in his room with headphones on, painting in his quiet world. Eventually, I opened the door. My father rose slowly. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside without a word. He entered like he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. No marble floors, no chandeliers. Just a warm home filled with toys, soft lights, walls decorated with hand-drawn memories taped with love, not ego. He sat down awkwardly at the dining table. "I didn't think last night would go that far," he began. "No," I interrupted. "You just thought it was okay to laugh at a 10-year-old. He winced. "I didn't laugh." "But you didn't stop them," I said. "Mom did. Eleanor did. And you sat there and let it happen. You taught me silence is approval. I learned that from you." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. The man who once ruled boardrooms with a stare now struggled to string together a sentence. "I gave up a lot to build this family," he muttered. "Worked hard, made sacrifices, put food on the table." I nodded. "Yeah, you gave us meals, but you served them with a side of shame." He looked down. "Why now? Why throw everything away over a joke?" I pulled out my phone and played the video. Eli red-faced. Eleanor, laughing without remorse. The rest of them joining in. My father, smirking. I paused it. "You see a joke," I said. "I see my son learning he's not enough." He went quiet. "You raised me to be a man," I continued. "To be tough. To protect my family." I leaned in. "I am protecting mine. Just not you." His voice dropped low. "You've humiliated me." I smiled faintly. "Now you know how Eli felt." He stood, jaw clenched, fury in his eyes. "I built an empire, Jordan. I walked to the door and opened it. Then maybe you should have built a heart to go with it." He took a few steps, then turned back. "I've lost you, haven't I?" "No," I replied softly. "You gave me up years ago. You just never noticed." I closed the door, locked it. A few minutes later, Eli came out rubbing his eyes. "Was that Grandpa?" I crouched down and met his gaze. "Not anymore." He nodded once, and just like that, a few rotten branches fell off our family tree. Because sometimes to grow, you have to cut away the things that poison you, even if they once looked like home. You'd think it would have ended there. But people like my mother, they never collapse quietly. They turn their fall into theater. Tears, manipulation, carefully tailored messages to sympathetic ears. 3 days later, I got the first call. "Hey man, your mom's saying you're suing the family over money. What's going on?" Then a text from a distant cousin. "She told me Eli's in therapy because of you." Lie after lie, spun with the elegance of silk but soaked in venom. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Instead, I leaked something else. An email from 6 months ago. Subject line, Jordan's kid's condition. Message, we should consider boarding school. Maybe Europe. No reason to keep him around once the will clears. No redactions. No blur. Her annotations in red still visible. I paired it with a screenshot of the trust document, then uploaded it anonymously to a closed forum of community leaders and donors. By noon, the consequences began. She was suspended from her charity board, removed from her social wine club. Her name went viral, not as a beloved matriarch, but as a grandmother who mocked her grandson's disorder behind his back while drinking Chardonnay. The next day, she appeared outside Eli's school, wearing dark glasses and a scarf, as if shame had a dress code. I stepped out of the car before Eli noticed her. "You're not welcome here," I said. Her voice wavered. "I didn't think the email would please. I'm still your mother." "Were," I replied, "before you chose control over compassion." She reached for me. "What do you want?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "Nothing. That's what you gave him that night. That's what I'm returning." Then I turned away, took Eli's hand, walked him inside, and never looked back. That evening, a message from Eleanor popped up. "I know you hate me, but Mom's spiraling. She hasn't eaten. She's afraid to go outside." I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed, "Maybe now she understands what hiding feels like." Block. That weekend, Eli and I painted the living room sky blue. He wanted stars. I let him. He painted one big yellow star right in the center and wrote my name inside it. Then he asked, "Why?" "Because you told me I shine," he said, his voice soft but steady. Even when they tried to dim my light, I had to turn away for a moment to catch my breath. In that instant, I understood this wasn't just retribution. It was a shield. It was proof that even when the world tries to quiet you, you can teach your child to speak with thunder. By Monday, a letter arrived. Heavy envelope, gold embossed crest, the same old Pierce family stationery used for galas and apologies alike. Inside, a card with neatly typed words. "Family issues are best met with grace. We ask you to reconsider before the damage becomes permanent." No signature. Just a check. $500,000. It was a payoff dressed as peace. An offering of hush money soaked in guilt. I laughed, because this was their native tongue. They traded shame for silence. Bargained love in commas and zeros. I snapped a picture of the check and burned it in the sink. Eli stood beside me, watching the flames eat away at their offer. "You're not keeping it?" he asked. "No," I said, "because they still think everything has a price." He didn't say anything, but I saw it in his eyes. Sharp, proud. Later, we visited the Starlight Center. The halls were quiet. Staff were still training, preparing for the soft launch. I handed Eli a small box. Inside was a silver plaque, the Eli Room. A space for children like him. A haven for creativity, for voice, for truth. He held it gently, as if it were fragile gold. "This is mine." "It always was," I said. "They just couldn't see it." That evening, the local newspaper published a piece. Founder gifts therapeutic center to son after public family rift. Beneath the headline, "He deserves a world that listens." The story spread quickly. Support poured in. Messages from parents, teachers, even kids who felt seen. Back at the Pierce estate, the family name had soured. My father's firm faced backlash. Longtime partners began to distance themselves. My mother's presence in the social sphere evaporated, replaced by headlines and hashtags. But the true reckoning came without noise. A formal letter from their attorney arrived. "Mr. Jordan Pierce, effective immediately, you are removed from all family boards and entitlements. Return any items acquired through family resources." I stared at it, then replied, "Done. But I'm keeping my name. And he's keeping his." I signed it simply, a father. Because that's who I had become when they decided legacy mattered more than love. Not a puppet. Not a successor. Just a protector. The house we once called home seemed to groan beneath its own shame. Then, at 2:14 a.m., the voicemail started. One after another. 14 missed calls by dawn. Finally, Eleanor's voice cracked through the speaker. "They froze Mom's accounts. The foundation's being investigated. Dad had a panic attack. He's in the hospital. Are you happy now?" I stood quietly in Eli's doorway, watching him sleep peacefully. Proud? No. But I was through apologizing for defending my son from predators cloaked in pearls and polished shoes. That morning, I visited the hospital. Not for them. For closure. My father lay in a private room, machinery humming, life subdued. Eleanor stood when she saw me. "You're here," she whispered, voice frayed. "Not for you," I replied. My father opened his eyes. Dull. Distant. The fire had left him. "I came," I said, "because Eli deserves the truth. I wanted to be here when you finally fell." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Just a look, one part shame, one part disbelief that the boy he raised to obey had become the man who dismantled the dynasty. Eleanor stepped forward. "We're still family." I turned to her. "You were blood. That's not the same." I left without another word. On the ride home, Eli texted me, "Can we go to the center after school? I want to finish the mural." "Of course. I'll bring your paints," I replied. That afternoon, sunlight streaming through tall windows, Eli finished the mural. One whole wall, half the room. He'd painted a tree, cracked and hollow at the base. But one single branch stretched out, strong and bright, with a swing hanging from it. "You made this?" I asked. He nodded. "The tree is them," he said. "The swing, that's me." "You built it." For the first time in years, I cried. Not out of sorrow, but from release. Because justice doesn't always come in fire. Sometimes, It arrives in brushstrokes and second chances. This was more than revenge. It was reconstruction. We held a grand opening that Sunday. Eli wore a navy blazer, his hair still a little tousled. He held my hand tight. Dozens of families arrived. Shy children with wide eyes softened when they saw the walls covered in color, light, and life. Reporters circled with questions. Why now? Why this? Is this about your family? I looked at Eli, then answered. This is about a boy who was told to move on. Instead, he grew through it. Applause rose. My phone buzzed mid-speech. A message from the lawyer. Pierce estate liquidation confirmed. Assets seized. Ongoing investigation. They want to see Eli one last time. I locked the screen. They had years to see him. They chose power. Now they could choose silence. After the event, Eli gave tours of the Eli room. He handed out stickers and hugs. One little girl whispered, I talk funny too. Eli beamed. That's awesome. Can you teach me? Outside, dusk painted the sky in amber. I stood beneath his mural. Do you think they miss us? He asked. Maybe, I said. But missing someone isn't the same as becoming better. He nodded, quietly absorbing more than any child should have to. Then he reached into his bag and handed me a drawing. Us, sitting together on the swing. In the corner, he'd written, We didn't fall. We flew. I knelt, wrapped him in my arms. You saved me too, you know. He smiled into my chest. I know. That night, under a quiet sky, we sat on the balcony watching stars blink into place. And for once, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even healing. I was whole. Not because we won, but because we walked away and built something better in the ashes they left behind. This wasn't revenge. This was resurrection.